everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a little bit of a different type of video. I'm having an interview with Danie van Kay. I know that a lot of you guys are familiar with her. She has an amazing podcast. She's doing amazing work online, and she's also a recovery coach with lived experience. And we're going to talk about extreme hunger. We're going to talk about movement. We're going to talk about all the important things. So stay tuned. Please let me know in the comments which of these things were most helpful for you, if you have any other questions. And also, of course, I'm going to link all of her information down in the information box. So if you feel like working with her, if you are interested in her recovery guide, or if you just want to follow her on social media, you can do so. And let's dive right into the interview. I'm here with, do I say Danie van Kay? Do I pronounce that correct?
Danie van Kay, yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm here with Danie today. I know that a lot of the people that actually watch the channel definitely know you. But just for those of you who don't know you, just like introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing? And why are you doing what you're doing?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Isn't it Melin?
Yeah.
Melin,
Yeah.
Okay. We kind of like just met, but I think she's awesome, just FYI. You asked me what I do as a coach, right?
Right.
Okay, well, I have been an eating sort of recovery coach. Time flies. I'm turning 35 in about 2 weeks, so I just did the math. It's more than 8.5 years. I keep saying 8.5, but it's more than that. And it started with my own personal journey. I had an eating disorder for about a decade, and as we all know, regular healthcare system is it's not it, is it? So I went in and out of residential treatments, clinics, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. I've seen them all, and it was just not working. And then I also had chronic Lyme disease at the time. Well, I mean, at that point, it was not late stage, but I had Lyme disease. They figured out it was late stage Lyme. And I got really, really sick within a year. And within a year, I couldn't do anything anymore. I was like physically unable. I was wheelchair bound. And that's really when I relapsed, first of all, very hard. And then my actual, I think, breakthrough was when I started fully recovering on my own after having done so many treatments. Have developed a method in the past few years called the DVK recovery method, which I now also monetize, trademarked, all the things on my website, which I've been working with for the past 8.5 years with a lot of success with a lot of people. And that's how I recovered. I came across the book of Tabitha Farrar, Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover, which I always say is the Bible of recovery. I'm not getting paid to say this. She doesn't know I exist. I think she is, tough love, like straight shooter. I kind of love that. So yeah, that's kind of like how it all went down. I don't know, like there's so much to say.
There always is. Thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. I feel like a lot of people can definitely relate to what you just said about like traditional treatment, kind of like whether it's the length, whether it's the things they focus on, whether it's like a lot of misconceptions, even in traditional treatment, like a lot of misconceptions about eating disorders, but also about recovery. I know that you also talk a lot about extreme hunger, the importance of listening to it. And I think that is like one very good example where unfortunately in traditional treatment, that is something that oftentimes they don't really get, they're not informed about it, they don't work with it. It's oftentimes mislabeled as, for instance, binge eating. And I feel like, especially for somebody who's going through extreme hunger, that can be extremely challenging to feel like, okay, well, maybe I even talked to like a healthcare provider about that, and they just said, oh, it's binge eating, you have to eat less, you have to be careful. For somebody who is going through extreme hunger right now and is maybe struggling with those thoughts and is maybe thinking, well, what if I'm experiencing binge eating? What if it's like going into another direction, even though they are informed about extreme hunger? What would you tell them?
Well, it's normal to be scared because everyone, I always say the pendulum needs to swing the other direction for as long as it needs. So you can't outsmart your body. You can be like, wait, this is extreme. What's going on? But you know what? That's reactive hunger for you. That's just your body's reaction to a famine, to starvation, to malnutrition. So obviously, the moment you start to eat, and we also know that eating-induced hunger is a big part of extreme hunger. Basically, what that means for those who don't know, eating-induced hunger basically means that you might not be that hungry, and then you start eating, you start also nervous system switching. So you go from your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight and flight, where you have to run for that tiger, where you can't really feel hunger at all, to your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest, where you can actually feel hunger. And we do nervous system switch a lot in day-to-day life, but a lot more in recovery and also with eating disorders in general. So when you start eating, you can be like, oh my God, like this primal urge of wanting to eat everything inside. And that was me as well. In the beginning, I wasn't really that hungry. And then I started to eat, and my extreme hunger was through the roof. And it kept going on and on and on for about 8 months. What I always say to everyone, and this is kind of like, is this even advice? Yes, it is, but it's hard advice. You need to give it time. And also know that you're normal, and this is not abnormal. What's abnormal is people who make you scared of something that's not going to happen. Binges, aka feasts, are normal, okay? They are normal. And I would argue that it's abnormal to not have feast or extreme hunger within recovery. Well, not abnormal, that's too much of a generalization. But most people who say, yeah, I don't really have it, they have it, but it's mental. It's not maybe that physical urge to eat everything inside. But I want everyone to know that it's normal and it will go away, but it will take time.
Yes.
And it will take a long ass time because you have built up this huge, humongous calorie deficit, energy deficit, and it's going to take time. But don't be afraid of binge eating disorder, because I know there's so many people on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot saying, oh, I have binge eating disorder because they binge after a long day of restriction. Well, duh.
Yeah.
That's not binge eating disorder. That's a binge restrict cycle. That's something different.
Very, very true. That's such an important point. And I think also the mental restriction too, like still labeling foods, still judging foods, that's also something that a lot of people underestimate. I definitely agree, yeah.
Yeah.
And you also said something super important about giving it time. I think extreme hunger, just as like every recovery journey, is super individual. Extreme hunger, for some people, it might only last a couple of weeks or a month, but for some people, it lasts way longer. And then also, what I notice in a lot of people is that kind of the switch, like, okay, when like extreme hunger wears off, of course, that's not going to happen overnight. Normally, it's kind of like going back and forth, or maybe it's going down a little bit. But that is oftentimes when people start to ask, okay, but how do I get back to balanced eating? How do I know that my body feels safe enough again? What do I need to do? When, of course, oftentimes it's not so much that they actually need to do. It's also like just like listening to the hunger and really resting. But what do I need to do if I have the urge of like finding balance again? But I also don't want to go back to restricting.
Right. That's kind of like the intuitive eating territory, right? It's sometimes a bit of a slippery slope, and you're allowed to fail, right? I mean, we all do in the beginning, because honoring your body and listening to your intuition, which you haven't done in ages, is such a weird foreign thing. And so you might think, okay, well, this is my body saying X, Y, Z. But the thing is, we need to also realize, for instance, I had a long ass day. It's currently, 6:40 in the evening for me. And I woke up this morning at 6 a.m. because I had like a long day of work. And guess what? I eat mechanically all the time because I know I'm in sessions all day. I need to have energy. Was I particularly hungry at these moments? Not necessarily. And if I would have listened to my intuition, my body, this, that, third, I would have not eaten as much. So I'm also very, in tune with my body, where I know, okay, it's going to be a busy day, or sometimes when I'm super stressed and there's a lot of things going on in my body. I personally, some people eat whenever they're stressed. My appetite it just goes. Whenever I'm super stressed, whenever personal things are going on, I have no appetite. So again, if I would listen to my intuition, I would have not eaten as much. But I know that because I have a genetic predisposition for an eating disorder, I need to eat at all times. So even those people who are now getting into the intuitive eating territory, which is all great, also know that mechanical eating is always going to be a thing in your forever life. And if you're always going to wait for that hunger signal, whether it's mental or physical, that's not really a smart thing. And no one really does that. Also, people without eating disorders know, okay, I need to go into a meeting for a few hours. Let me eat something quickly, you know. But like I said, I prefer for people to do this with guidance. So people who are transitioning from being recovered or close to being recovered and then to eating intuitively, I would always say work with a therapist or a coach like us to just with someone to kind of like hold your hand, because it's so, like I said, foreign and strange and weird, because your body, you kind of let down your body and the other way around as well.
Yeah, very, very true. And I love what you just brought up about mechanical eating, because I think that's something that gets oftentimes so misunderstood, especially as you just said on social media when people talk about intuitive eating. And I'm honestly just like you. Like sometimes I'm not hungry at like a certain time, but I know that I have sessions or I have something going on, so I will just eat because I know otherwise I will be famished afterwards, and I just, want to avoid that. And it's not always about like highly listening to every hunger cue and be like asking yourself 12 times if you're hungry or not. Sometimes it's really just about eating and making sure that your body gets the food. I want to switch a little bit to something that you as a coach probably hear all the time. A lot of people do have the urge to recover. They are very aware of their eating disorders. They know what they want to recover for. They might have found the why. They know what they don't want anymore, but they're so afraid of weight gain, and they automatically think, okay, well, if I'm afraid of weight gain already, then it's just gonna get worse once I'm gaining weight. What is your advice to somebody in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, weight gain is the hardest thing about recovery. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's the hardest part. Now, I will say some people, weirdly enough, including myself, when I was even overshooting, I wasn't as destroyed mentally as I thought I would be. I really thought I'm never going to be able to cope. I will just, I don't know, die a tragic death or something. But I was like, I just don't necessarily like the body where I'm in, but the life that I get back in return, I do really, really love. And some people might say, yeah, but like you said, that's all great, but I'm already afraid how I'm going to cope with that. Well, the thing is, you are already future tripping if you're going to do that, because you also have to realize that an anorexic brain, a brain that is starved, a brain that is malnourished, and we're not talking about weight, just FYI. You can also be at a quote unquote healthy BMI and be very malnourished and under the weight where you're supposed to be. So an underweight, and again, that can be in a quote unquote normal BMI, a starved brain is an anorexic brain, a restrictive brain is primed to be terrified of weight gain in general. So that's just, it's the same as like a lot of people will say, I don't really feel physical hunger. Well, that's because your brain thinks we're in a famine. There's no resources available. So why would it think about food? Because that's very unproductive, because there's no food around, so you'll die. And that's why a lot of people also have night hunger, because then after the migration process and hoarding food, you can then rest. Anyway, that's a sidetrack. But it's normal to be afraid. And also we live in a culture, and I always talk about this with clients, we live in a fucked up culture with, can I swear?
Yes, you can.
So we live in a culture where being thin is praised and being big or fat is, the most horrible thing ever. We don't live in somewhere in a culture where that's just being celebrated. So unfortunately, that will always be something that everyone is going to run into. The diet talk, people around you who are actually actively losing weight. You just have to, I'm going to be tough lovey now. You kind of have to realize you are like an alcoholic. You are someone who can't just have a drink and be like, you know what, that's it. No, because that person with that genetic predisposition will take it too far. Now, this person might want to be like, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They'll probably be like, actually I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's an alcoholic. He said, oh, God damn, I really want to just have a drink, And I said, dude, I get it. makes total sense, but you just can't. You need to accept it. And he says, yeah, I know. So that's part of the acceptance, that he can't. He just has to be sober for the rest of his life. Someone with an eating disorder needs to accept that weight gain is going to be the consequence of recovery, point blank. You can think about it so long and be like, I'm so afraid of it. Yes, you're right. You are afraid. You need to embrace that fear as opposed to fighting against it. And you're upholding that fear most likely through restriction. So this, with a lot of words, the only thing I can say is lean in. Also know that by rewiring, by rehabilitating, by nourishing yourself, life gets more color. You are able to do much more things. And so your weight is less important because your body will allow you to do so many beautiful things that you weren't able to do. And the weight doesn't matter as much as you think.
Yeah. I honestly love that answer so much because it holds so much truth. From, the part of like being really so afraid, but then reinforcing that fear with restriction. But also the fact that this is just one of those things that, unfortunately, or maybe not even unfortunately, because it's just something that we are, primed to see as something negative when it's actually not, just like plays a part for most people in recovery. That fear of weight gain, that fear of losing control, that fear of the changing body. And then also there's a lot of like fear mongering online, in society, basically everywhere you look, about like certain foods, about whether it's sugar, whether it's processed foods. I feel like every other year we find something else to be afraid of. And that is like the same thing where a lot of people probably have to learn, well, I have a predisposition, and so for me the most dangerous thing is actually to not eat those foods. Right. And yet it can be very, very scary for a lot of people, even when like sometimes doctors still work with a BMI or tell them certain things. What would you advise somebody in that situation when it sometimes might even feel like, oh, can I really believe the people who talk about recovery, the people who talk about the health imbalance, when there's so much information about how unhealthy certain things are?
I mean, it's a fact that there's processed foods and unprocessed foods, and either or is not good, or doesn't make you a good or a bad person. So it doesn't make you a bad person if you eat processed foods, right? And it doesn't make you a good person if you eat unprocessed foods. And as you just said, yes, our culture is very primed to focus on health versus unhealthy, right? What's unhealthy is mental and physical restriction. And I'm always very straight to the point with that. I mean, actual health is, for instance, like I live in the south of France. I know you also don't live in your home country. You're in LA, right?
Yes, right.
Yes, yeah. So I'm part-time in Amsterdam, part-time in the south of France, which is a huge, you wouldn't think because it's all within Europe, but the people around me here, they live such a free life. The Mediterranean diet is really fun, actually. It's really just a lot of croissants and white bread and olive oil and wine with lunch and this, that, and no one roars really hard, which sometimes is annoying when you have to get a hold of someone. But it's really, really fun. And people are just really fucking enjoying themselves. And that is healthy. Yeah. The stress that goes along with, oh my God, I need to eat the high protein, low sugar, non-fat, this, that. That's not healthy. And those healthified foods, I personally don't think are healthy at all. They're very pricey. They are just a lot of artificial stuff. And, you also need the fats and the calories and all the things, the good stuff to be healthy. And the most important thing is that we need to create, I love to focus on normalcy. What is normal? And also what's normal within your culture? If you're from a certain country where everyone eats a warm lunch, then why are you eating bread or salad for lunch? Eat a warm lunch. If you're from a country where everyone eats dinner super late and you're always at the dinner table at 6 because, oh my God, what if you don't digest after a certain time? Focus on normalcy. What is normal in your life, within your culture? Focus on getting normalcy within your life, no matter or however that looks like.
Yes, I actually love that. That's so true, because that is something that a lot of people really do not do. Of course, not in their eating disorder, because they live up to the rules of the eating disorder, and not up to, it's not even rules, but up to the normalcy around them. So this is a really good point. Yeah. And then the same thing often goes for sports, working out, depending on the culture that you grew up in, and also like a little bit depending on your bubble probably. But I feel like this is another big thing where people really learn, like you have to work out a certain amount of time. If you're not working out, you're not healthy. And then also sometimes it can be tricky for people. Like some people might really want to get back to either working out or finding a way of moving their body that feels good for them, but it's like really tricky to know when is a good time. Then there's people that are afraid to mess up their recovery. They're afraid that the body feels scarcity again. What are your thoughts on working out overall after an eating disorder? And also, well, let's answer that question first.
Yeah. After an eating disorder, I always say, like, I'm not the anti-movement police. Everyone thinks, oh, well, when I'm going to work with Danie, then it's just, I'm not allowed to do anything. For me, it's not about that. For me, it's about the intention and how you're refueling and fueling yourself. That's first and foremost the most important thing. It's also not about the food. It's about how you eat the food, when you eat the food, why you eat the food. It's all about the rules, the rituals, all the things around it. So when it comes to exercise, it's so individualized. I mean, it depends on if you are dealing with hypothalamic amenorrhea, if you haven't had your period, it's not really smart to run, right? To maybe focus a little bit more on strength training. Also, not that much. It depends on, I have so many clients who I send to do a DEXA scan, a bone density scan, and all the GPs are like, wait, why do you need to do a scan? Sorry, I've been in malnutrition for a long time, but everyone comes back with, yeah, you're right. I have osteoporosis. So also, when you have osteoporosis, same thing. You need to sometimes like have a little bit of an impact on the bones. So that means some strength training or some, walking. So I find this a hard one to answer, to be honest, because it's such a customized, like I said, individualized, tailor-made answer. I would always recommend working with someone, whether it's a coach or therapist, even, or have someone who holds you accountable. And let's say, okay, well, where does the desire come from with exercising? Is it because you really like it? Also, your desire might change. For instance, right now in the summer, I don't go to the gym at all. I just take walks and that's it, because I don't really feel like going to the gym in this heat. And I don't know, it's just not a thing I like. And so it's important. It's kind of like intuitive eating, intuitive living. What kind of way would you like to move your body? How did you grow up, like playing tennis, or are you a big skier or an avid cycler, whatever it may be? Also look at what you like versus what you need to do from the eating disorder voice.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think that is oftentimes where this gap comes in between what society makes you think that you should do, whether it is going to the gym a certain amount of times a week, or doing even like a certain type of movement that you need to do because that's what we're doing right now. And not so much, okay, as you just said, like not only what does my body need, but also what do I want right now? And of course, what is the intention? Yeah. Very, very important.
Absolutely.
Let me just take a quick look at my notes. I know this is also a super individual one, and maybe you want to even answer that just like about yourself. But what is like the biggest mindset shift for people in eating disorders, or that you maybe even either see in a lot of clients, or also what was the biggest mindset shift for yourself that helped you to really go all in and do recovery?
Right. So in my case, in my personal story, is not a great example, because it was a dire situation. I was close to honestly dying as well, not because of my eating disorder, but because of my Lyme. I was in so much physical pain. I just couldn't function. I was not well. I was very depressed. I ended up at psychiatric units and asking like a cry for help. And because nothing was within my control, I was like, you know what? I have control over one thing. yes, sure, restriction. I can go on onto that path, which I've been on for many years, or I can turn it around and be like, I'm going to focus on full recovery, and that's what I did. And I just sat and I ate. So there was, for me, was there really a mindset shift? I don't know. I think it was just one day where I decided, and it wasn't. It was a gradual. I always say to everyone, for me, it was like I increased my intake within 3 months, and then at some point I went all in, and that's that. Never looked back. For most people, like you said, it's a very individualized question. It's very dependent from person to person. I would say what helped me and what helps a lot of clients when they apply for coaching, they'll be like, I'm so fucking scared. And I always say, like, I get it, been there, done it. But give yourself a year. Give yourself a year of giving it your all, like your forever commitment, like your every single thing you pour in recovery. And after that year, if you're like, okay, well, that sucks. I hate my body. I hate the way I live right now. Everything shit. You can always go back. You know, going back is always a choice. And I kind of like feel like for a lot of people that's something to hang on to. And I'm just saying a year because usually it takes about an average. Again, this is very generalized, but I would say a minimum of a year, in fact, because that's the only thing I don't agree with with Tabitha Farrar, who writes in her book that it should take about 6 to 8 weeks recovery, which I think is a little tone deaf, because I think there's so many people with severe trauma, so many comorbidities. That's actually my niche. People with so many other things going on. So, and then on the we also, I think body image in itself is like almost a separate thing that we have to work on. So yeah, mindset shifts. It's like flipping the switch, which is not really a thing. For some people, by the way, it is. And I always think, like, for me, what helped was that thing to hold on to. Like, okay, I'm giving it a year. And if I made the agreement with myself. You can even, people are writing contracts and like with themselves, like, okay, giving it, or with me, they'll be like, I give it a year. Okay, I'm also going to invest in myself for a year. And after that, if I hate it, and no one hates it. That's the thing. Everyone is like, holy crap, I'm getting my life back. So yeah, I don't know if that was an answer to your question. I don't think so, but
no, actually, definitely it is, because you just pointed something out that might even be a misconception about recovery, and that is that you always need to have a huge mindset shift. That there is always like this one, like for some people even wait for that one moment where it clicks, and I think that might be a big misconception. That might be the case for some people, for sure, but it's not something that everyone needs to experience in order to start recovery. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, anything you would like to mention about eating disorders, about recovery, about your work?
Well, I have something that like I said, that my DVK recovery method guide is in a guide form. So it's something that is not super expensive. It's €39. I'm not saying this to sell something. I'm saying it because I remember that when I was in recovery myself, I needed something tangible, something action-based, something action-oriented. And being coaching is different than talk therapy. Because in talk therapy, in psychotherapy, you just talk about your shit, but you don't really do anything about it necessarily. You walk out that room thinking, well, I didn't really do much. And so this, I think, method I've created purely for the reason because I was always stuck. So it's meant for those people who are like, I don't really know how to start at all, because how? And I get that. So I kind of like give tangible tips in that method of like, how do you actively start recovery? And usually it's a stepping stone, in fact, for going all in. Like I said, that's my experience. I did that for about 3 months. And then I just, my mental and extreme and my eating induced hunger got so big that I just couldn't deny that anymore. So that's something I'm really proud of. It's my my baby. I always say I worked so hard on it. I tweaked it for many, many years. I asked so many clients for feedback, and so far we had major success with it. So this is just something I wanted to share, that it came from actually my clients. I started to work with so many people and I listened to them, and the feedback as a coach is also so important.
That's true.
Really listen to those people. Really listen to your clients.
That is so true. I'm gonna link the guide down in the description box, and I'm also gonna link your Instagram, your podcast, which I know has helped so many people, your website, so if anyone is interested in working with you or like getting on the wait list, that people can find you. Thank you so much for taking the time today, for coming on here, sharing your experience, and also answering these questions that just so many people in recovery have. I know that there's probably like a billion other questions that we could have asked or that we could have talked about, but I feel like this will actually help a lot of people, so thank you so much.
You're so welcome, and thank you for having me again. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much for everyone who made it this far, who watched the full video. Again, let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. What was your favorite part about the interview? And I will see you guys in the next one.